All right, let's go ahead and get started. I've got 3:30. I will go ahead and call to order. This is an informal subcommittee, so if you all would like to sit at the table, please feel free to sit up
That would
here.
be nice.
Yeah, it's totally okay. Same rules apply. Wave me down, and we'll get you in there. So really quickly, calling to order our membership. We have Commissioner Hayes Santos, Sacco, and Chestnut here. Commissioner Ward has rolled off as a member. We wish him well. Adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second by Chestnut to adopt our agenda. Any discussion? Yes.
So I have an issue with the agenda in general, that we got this material 5 hours before the meeting.
Okay.
That has been one of our neighbors' main critiques about anything. It's been a critique from the dais itself. I'm going to be honest, I looked over the cover page of some stuff, but I have not read it, and I don't think that
Okay.
allows
Yeah.
anyone here to have, Mud Plus staff, to have a coherent discussion on it. We can discuss in general, but I'm going to be honest, I had 5 hours notice about all of this, so I have not read it.
Yeah, my apologies for that. It is easy enough to have a discussion about the topics. We have not given any staff direction, so they, could not produce any material without staff direction. Being that it is a subcommittee, we're not giving commission direction, so we're just discussing. It's essentially a sunshine discussion amongst the commissioners.
Except we are asking the commission to give us the authority to direct staff on
That's-
something we haven't. I understand staff couldn't produce anything for this meeting anyway. However, staff has not reviewed what we are going to review and be discussing. I think that's inappropriate. You're asking me to comment, you're asking us to comment on stuff that nobody in here has read, in a direction that nobody knows if we want to go that way, because we haven't been able to compare it to other research other than this, because we didn't know this is the direction, this sub-direction of a greater, broader discussion. That to me is a problem. I'm happy to have the discussion because everyone's already here, but I don't think this is an appropriate way to handle it.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Chair. So I think we can have a discussion, and then when the item comes up, if we don't want to get direction or we want more information, then I think having that discussion at that time. I think it's always good to have backup earlier and stuff like that, but I do think we can. I think we can, and if members aren't ready to move forward on something, then I think that's a very reasonable thing. So I don't know if I'm there on these either. I haven't had any chance either, but I think that we can. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
And I think that for the future, we'll just strive to get things early.
That's the ideal. Point well taken, commissioners. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Seeing none, moving to the approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes for April 5th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second from Sacco. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye, like sign. That motion passes unanimously. Okay, so let's start with our first item, 211160, electric vehicles and renewable energy. So the discussion I really want to center around how we can sort of encourage our procurement policies, whether it's using general fund monies or whether it's pursuing grants, federal grants or state grants, how we can really codify the movement towards more electric vehicles that the city is purchasing. So that's where I'd like to start the discussion. The draft policy that was put in there is really just an example of what other cities have done. I know that we have our own fleet management department, so they're always constantly reviewing the status of the city's fleet, and so we don't have to go into the level of detail that I think, we don't have to ask for a full review of everything the city currently uses, because we already have a department that does that on a regular basis. But I think we do have to give direction to encourage and codify the procurement of electric vehicles.
So
Yeah,
what's
go
our
ahead.
status now? How many EVs do we have in our fleet? Do we know?
I do not know how many we have individually. Does a member of staff have?
Whose department does this come under? This is
RTS.
RTS.
No, it's
No.
under the city, it's under
Is
the
it
fleet.
Public Works?
There's a fleet department,
Well, Phil is here. He can
and
tell
that's under
us
the city
that.
manager's office.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, our fleet department is in the Department of Transportation and Mobility. Both RTS and fleet are in the same department, but they're two separate departments.
Okay.
Okay. Oh,
Do,
Bill, would you happen to have any information on our EVs currently?
No, ma'am, I don't. I know we
Okay.
have 3 electric buses, a 4th one on order, and the last I heard, we had about a half a dozen electric vehicles.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Chair. Similar to Commissioner Chestnut, I think I'd like for us to maybe ask staff to come back with kind of where are we now?
Yep.
What is our, the GRU, general government, what are the current policies? I know we are going for grants and stuff like that, so what is the kind of the current, or is there a policy, or is there not a policy, or is there a direction right now to move towards electric or not? And then getting that, I think it'll give us a good base to further discussion from there, where we can see kind of where the holes are and where some of those are. And then I think, I guess maybe if there is some, I know in the past there was some studies done, I think, on the finances of moving towards all electric as well, and kind of the costs. And I feel like that was like 3 or 4 years ago we had that discussion. So there might be some stuff already kind of created, but that's what I'd like for us to consider having that come back to us. Thank you, Chair.
And if staff could include information on the charging stations,
Yes.
where are they, what do we anticipate?
Yes, perfect. Commissioner?
So as far as like fleet for our buses charging, RTS, the main, like RTS Depot, now the new one, was built out in preparation for more EVs.
Okay.
So they have some that they use, and then they have some that they have the capacity for more.
More.
So they
Okay.
really built it thinking ahead. Mr. Gomez really kept that in mind. He had asked other facilities who are further ahead than us, what would you wish you had remembered to do? And so they built for the future, not for the present. So it does have at least a couple, and they kind of rotate through as to charging. I think Andrew wants to.
Oh,
Well, I was just gonna add, not that I'm looking for my department to have more work, but I know we have talked about a little bit in the community about on the land development code side, requiring EV charging stations for new development. That's something that, could be something that the city explores, either through like when we're permitting new fueling stations, or for, developments of a certain size, or that kind of thing. We have seen a lot of commercial developments do that without, city requirements or incentives. But that is another sort of, tool that the commission or the committee could consider.
okay, good, good.
Excellent, thank you. And for those of you who just walked in, it's an informal subcommittee, so we've got empty chairs. You're welcome to come and join us. Just same rules apply. Yeah, come up and I'll just, point everybody out. So, any other discussion? Seems like we're moving towards some general.
Well, that's,
Yeah, that's what
And
I was
just-
saying.
just introduce
That's what I
yourself.
was saying to you.
yes, I'm Jeff Shapiro with the League of Women Voters, and this is Roberta Gassmeyer, also at the League. We're members of the Natural Resources Committee of the League. I'm also the chair of the Local Issues Committee. And we have really developed quite a vision, I think, at least an introductory overall vision for what we're hoping for in the EV market especially. I looked at Tallahassee, for example, and they've got, I think, 17 electric buses. This is mostly through the benefit from the U.S. Department of Transportation, and they gave them a grant of, I forget how many million, in order to buy buses. So they've been very successful in buses. They have a large power plant, solar power plant, I forget, maybe 800 megawatts, 600 megawatts, something like that, out at the airport in Tallahassee. And they have use of that for their government buildings, apparently. They're able to use that electricity. Their buildings are largely supported from solar, from what I understand. But as far as EVs go, we've been talking a lot about that. We have one member who's very interested in EVs. I myself have a EV hybrid plug-in car. And so we support exactly what Adrian was saying, Commissioner Hay Santos was saying about the necessity perhaps to look at the charging station situation, how many EVs we actually have, which doesn't sound like very many to me, and the potential for all that in terms of funding especially. So I think a lot of planning needs to be done. So I think we fully support the input of staff on these issues.
Thank you. Any further? Did you want to talk?
Get to the EV.
Please,
Yes,
yeah,
please,
go
yes,
ahead.
yes. So yes, I'm Roberta Gassmeyer, as he mentioned, co-chair of the Natural Resources Committee, and I really appreciate, number one, this committee being formed, but also, the discussion on EVs. I know this is focused quite a bit on procurement, but I think what we'd like to see is a broad policy, a comprehensive transportation electrification policy, so that everybody in the community can partake of this clean energy transportation. So I encourage you to look at the electrification toolkit. I can send you some links on this about other municipalities throughout the country who have moved successfully toward transportation electrification, and they've encouraged EV chargers throughout the community. And also a big part of this is community engagement. Again, I know you're really interested in a lot of that, but we have organizations, and we have an EV club, we have the League of Women Voters, many people have electric vehicles, and they often set up little events where people can come and test drive or sit in the car and see what it's all about. So we encourage you to partner with us and get the word out to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. It sounds like we're moving towards some consensus for getting more information back for where we currently are before we ultimately decide where we want to go. Do we have any further comment from staff before we go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I would move that we ask staff to come back with a presentation on the number of electric vehicles that we have, across general government and GRUs, the whole entire city. Any current policies on procurement of moving towards electric vehicles, our current goals as a city for moving towards electrical vehicles, and any kind of current policies in that realm. And then also the information on, I guess, the life cycle of vehicles too, and kind of like when some will last for 10 years, some will last for 20 years, and then any kind of budgetary stuff maybe that's tied to electric vehicles as well.
I'll second that. Could we also include any government incentives for moving towards EVs, for government and for consumers? At one time there was, I'm not sure if there still are incentives for people to.
Yeah, no, I think I think as part of the infrastructure package as well, I think there is some dollars available in there, so I think having that in there is good too. Okay.
Would you mind adding a countdown, as Mr. Persons was saying, some places have already kind of put it in. I think we would have data on which places applied to put in already. I'd kind of like to see a map of where we do have charging stations that are either available in
private or
in multifamily, not necessarily single-family homes, but like in multifamily or commercial spaces.
Yeah, as long as that's not.
If that's possible to find out.
Like a lot of work.
Yeah, we were just talking about it. I think we can probably pull permitting information out.
Okay.
Do that.
Thank you.
Phil?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add a couple of things, talking about the electric vehicles. So we've kind of been on the forefront of some of that. Back in the mid-2000s, during the last recession, we looked at, both us and GRU, we looked at those big bucket trucks that we have that have to sit and idle all day while they do their work above. And we made the switch, on the public works side, we made the switch to all of our bucket trucks and our urban forestry trucks all have GEM units in them, which allows us to operate the overhead equipment with electric instead of having the diesel run all day. Now, this was before they had really got into investing in electric vehicles, but at least we are on that side. And also, I know Ms. McCready has been working on, she's been tasked with our electric vehicle charging side on this general government side. So we have those obviously for where we have electric vehicles. The next discussion was, is there a way that we can, like the ones behind City Hall, is there a way we can retail those? So that would be the appropriate place, based on the referral you all just made, to get that information from Director McCready and our fleet manager, Jason Foster. I want to share with you that we have been looking at it for quite some time because of the footprint our diesel vehicles have when they have to run all day.
Terrific. And thank you for sharing that. I had known, with my time on the commission, that we're certainly not starting from scratch, but this is the first time hearing of the bucket truck technology, so that's good to learn.
It took me some time to get used to see a gigantic bucket truck parked in a electric vehicle or energy efficient vehicle space. But that's how we have to charge them.
Heard. Well, perhaps that should be looked at as well. Okay, so we have a motion and a second from Chestnut. My recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, is we want staff to come back with our current EV policies, innovations that we've had, so including the bucket truck information, a map on the existing EV charging station for developments, and also a cross-section of whatever the city has, looking into government incentives that we could access for EVs. Is there anything I'm missing?
Yeah, the current number of vehicles and then our current goal, and do we have plans to, because we do have a goal right now, going
Right.
by 2045.
2045?
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
do we have any plans?
Right. What is the plan to help us get
Yeah.
there?
We might not have.
Okay, perfect. Do we have any further comment on the motion before we vote? Go ahead.
Well, one other comment, probably need not be included in the motion, but we also had a comment about waste management contractors, for example, other contractors that we could encourage to use EVs would be excellent.
Yeah. My understanding is that the fleet management team works with all of our contractors. Is that right?
So
We want to move up to the table.
You
On the
may as
solid-
you
well.
may wish to.
May as well.
Second.
on the solid waste, I think that's currently out for bid, right? Or-
Yeah, Mr. Hayes Santos is correct. In our current contract that we're actually negotiating this week, it requires them to, within 2 years, switch the fleet to electric or provide some information to us as to why they cannot. So you'll be seeing that contract sometime in the not too distant future.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay. We're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Seeing none. That was great. That was quick. Short work. Commissioner, we just took a vote on the motion. So we will now, excuse me. Let's now move to the next item, Sustainable Industrial Practice Incentive Plan. So I really just wanted to get the commission's appetite for whether we want to go down this route. I did include some backup research. Essentially there's things like tax deductions, like we can offer tax deductions per square foot of what is used for different materials. But it gets into so many different like technical, like what is the difference between a heating material, what is the difference between interior lighting costs, ventilation, water heating, like all those things are so technical. So before we start jumping into those particulars, I wanted to sort of get the commission's appetite for the discussion and then hopefully to hear from some staff.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding in Florida is somewhat difficult to do certain types of we can't do like, if we do a property tax, like rebate, it has to go to the voters, I think. So in some of these, that's the case. In other jurisdictions, they're allowed to do more. I just don't know how much I guess, yeah, I don't know how much we can actually do here at the local level on some of this stuff because of how state law is written. And having to go for a vote for voters is not
Yeah,
an
no,
efficient way
I
to do things.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Another comment is, whether we want to pursue incentives ourselves, like whether we want to actually pursue money from the federal and state government for like our own buildings as well, like retrofitting and things like that, whether that's something we would want to pursue. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to, following up on what Jeff started out with and talking about Tallahassee and the solar out at the airport providing energy for their building. Do we have are we anywhere near that, or got any buildings that
Go ahead.
are being,
We're 100% renewable for all our city buildings. We just have to say we are. I mean, we produce
okay?
30% of every day of our electricity is renewable. I mean, same thing in any of these places. They're just saying that that's where their electricity comes from for all their city buildings.
Oh.
Like Newbury, for example, says that they are all 100% solar. They're just buying solar off the grid. So we could say today we are. I've tried in the past, but we should just say that we are. We are.
Well, I'm
We
learning.
produce
So-
more than enough right
All
now.
right, so I just want to know
We
that,
could,
because
yes.
I was intrigued by
Yeah.
that one.
Definitely.
That's why I moved up here. It's easier. So, Mr. Chair, one of the things that facilities is working on, and we right now have a new facilities manager that will come on board June 1st. And so one of the things we tasked him with, and this is a carryover from when we were working with the previous city manager, we've got a firm under contract that they'll be looking at all of our buildings and all of the energy savings. And the way that it's a contract that's issued by the state. Mr. Haysantis is, I think, aware of this. They make money by saving us money. They implement the projects, and then we pay them with the savings. So they're going to be looking at our buildings to see how we can save energy in each of our buildings. And some of our newer LEED buildings, they might not be able to save us any money where it's worth their while, but they're going to be looking at us and giving us a plan. And like I said, the new facilities manager starts June 1st, and I've been talking to the company, and they're just waiting for him to come on board to start.
Okay, very good.
Excellent. And does anybody on staff have any response to the comment that Adrian made about Florida law and what prohibitions we might run into if we tried to incentivize more sustainable building parts, materials?
Well, that's why I brought my building official along. No, actually, so I would say the commissioner's comment about tax incentives is true. Like we do, unless it's specifically authorized by statute where we can provide tax incentives or tax breaks, pretty much everything else has to go to referendum. We do, I think probably the commission's aware, we do have a green building ordinance that was actually amended, 2 years ago, last year?
Yeah, 2 years ago, just pre-COVID.
Right, and we had made a number of amendments to that, including the building certification standards. We broadened those out. And in those cases, we provide expedited permitting for green buildings. We discount the building permit fees by half. And so we budget every year in the building fund, some amount of money for rebates for our green buildings. And we do, 2, 3 or so a year?
Well, I think the last year we only actually reimbursed two.
Two, yeah.
We have a couple more pending, but we depend on a third-party certification before we'll reimburse.
Right.
Okay.
The challenge that we have is with a statewide building code, if it becomes difficult for local jurisdictions to specify more stringent or specify certain building materials, they have to have Florida product approval, and generally we can't regulate, but we can, incentivize. The side is a little bit difficult because ultimately it comes down to dollars, and what we can leverage at a local level is probably not going to be as, is not going to really kind of move the needle, speaking about that. I would say that, like, what I would maybe encourage, like, we just sort of, got tagged into this, so we're starting to look at, like, what programs maybe at the national or state level that perhaps, Gainesville could utilize. Like, I'm thinking about, like, what we do a little bit on economic development with the QTI program, where there's a state program where it's for job creation, and then the city participates in that with a small local contribution. So we might be able to get a bigger bang for our buck by, utilizing existing programs that are already stood up at the state or national level. So yeah, I think if the commission was interested in that, that would be where we'd encourage you guys to think about, like, how do we leverage already programs that are at the state level. And DEO and some of the other agencies have stuff, or potentially looking for grant opportunities as well.
Yeah, I think that's where, thank you for that feedback. I would like us to go in that direction. I'd also like to know sort of do we have a goal that we want to set in terms of how many of, not just pursuing grants and pursuing incentives, but do we want to set a goal for, the city sounds like, we're gonna have to wait until at least that person gets onboarded and they have a chance to sort of get more familiar with the work. So our own city buildings, we're already moving at a pace there, so, that can be set aside. But do we want to set a goal for private sustainable development and things like that? So I think we could only pursue that goal if we have those state and federal incentives that you mentioned.
Right. I did want to plug, I forgot about this. I did want to plug, your residential rental program, like, is 100% like in line with that. In terms of energy efficiency standards that we can enforce on rental properties, that is absolutely kind of in line with best practices. And I think, as I mentioned at the GPC meeting last week, we were at we just received a national award for being the first in the country on on using DOE's energy score. So we're doing pretty good. We're ahead of the game on some of these things. So
Awesome.
And we haven't constructed a new building since facilities was assigned to Public Works, but I think the commission has also set a standard for LEED certification for cities' new construction. I would have to verify that and get back with you. But I know the Public Works Administration building is Silver LEED certified, and I think there's a minimum LEED certification that we have to get for all new buildings, but I will check and get back with you on that.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question, was about LEED certification, and my understanding is that Gainesville has pursued LEED certification before, but that was before my time, so we'd also probably want to get some more of that information back. Any more comments? Okay.
I think, thank you, Chair. I think, if we could, I think one of the things is saying that we are having charity staff come back and say, like, us being 100% renewable energy for all our city buildings,
Because the math breaks down.
the math breaks down, everyone else does it, and we should. We've been doing it for decades. If we don't tell our story and don't tell people the reality of where we're at. And I do think, probably after the new person comes on, but I think to your point earlier, I think delving into kind of what is our plan for bringing up our new buildings and retrofitting them, and there's a massive cost to that, but what is kind of that long-term plan, or is that plan you want to have as well?
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, and I think here, again, this is on another topic, is the opportunity to share with the public in a weekly or bi-weekly television program what we are doing. Because this is getting the information out to the public. I'll just keep plugging that each opportunity I have.
So there has been, through GRU, because they've encouraged people to go paperless, They tried it with information, I think, about when we ended the winter max. And they tried it with one other program. So in the buildings, they had like videos and they can actually record how many people opened and watched the video. It's a simpler, you can watch it whenever situation. So they've put on a couple of those, like informing them, like this is what it means on your bill. Like go through your bill. This new number means this. And we figured it out because we changed X, Y, and Z. So that is one alternative. That's much faster to get off the ground and cheaper. And then it's just available for everyone. We can actually gauge the metrics pretty easily in-house of who's actually seen it or been interested in it. Or anybody, I guess, who subscribes to the daily, because that also goes out to subscribers. And we could embed it in those as well, if you want it more than once a month.
Well, maybe this is something that staff can bring up on Thursday when we talk about constituent services. They can fold that into it and include that in the report. It's a good idea.
Any more discussion? Okay. Well, yeah, I would like to at least give some kind of ask and a motion, just to bring back the information that we wanted to receive on the lead certifications. Maybe just get a brief update on the facilities, the green building ordinance, and, gosh, I'm blanking, the
100% electrical.
100% renewable city buildings. And just double check our math on that. I'm sure, I mean, I know how many megawatts we generate with renewable energy, so it more than covers what city buildings need by like 100-fold, if not more. So I just want to make sure that, staff gives us the okay on that.
So I so move.
Second.
Awesome. Motion and a second from Jesus Santos. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like sign. Opposed? Seeing none. Motion carries, and we are moving swiftly. Okay, so our next item, the environmental and climate justice equity. So I gave this a lot of thought about what was the best way to approach it. Really, this is more about inclusion of neighbors in conversations and trying to figure out what are their environmental concerns in their neighborhood, what different issues are they facing. And so what I wanted to ask was just that we, first let's have a discussion about it. What I wanted to do was to ask staff to essentially host the listening sessions, but we're sort of already doing that, moving into each neighborhood. So if we could just include in that element, include an environmental justice element through the various neighborhood meetings that have been going on over the last few months. Good.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that's probably a better way to do it. And that's also, that's what these committee meetings are as well, is to hearing from the public. But I think including them with what's already happening, I think we're hearing this more there's too many meetings, we're almost engaging too much. And I think that it's not only our staff, but also like our public, I think, is almost, we're asking them too much stuff. So if we can add it as part of other things, I think that would work out well. And I think that delves in perfectly to those conversations too. It kind of gets into what's happening at your neighborhood level and what are your concerns.
Yeah, I think a lot of the concerns that I've heard have either been infrastructure related, so concerns about the trees in the neighborhood, concerns about the streets, the sidewalks, the utilities overhead. Some neighborhoods have had more specific concerns, so Porter's Quarters had a major concern with the soot particulate that comes from the cement plants that are across the street. Now, last year I had staff look into some of the complaints that have been received, so there have been complaints filed, but they've all been dealt with. So, of course, that tells us that that specific complaint was dealt with that specific time, but there's a bigger concern about sort of the longer danger. So, one of the big asks I had for this committee, and we don't have to take a vote today on it, but I want you all to think about it. We're doing our comprehensive plan update. It has been brought up before, the concerns about the zoning south of Main and where Depot Park is. I think that part of the city has moved past its industrial use. And I think that it's time for us to include in our comprehensive plan that we don't allow for industrial zoning within a certain amount of feet of residential neighborhood zoning. So that's, I know that's huge, so I just want to get that out there. Good.
Yeah, so I have worries of doing it within 100, whatever, those kind of things, and we should zone correctly for that area and for whatever works. I agree that that should not, it probably passed. I mean, it was put there because it was next to a black neighborhood. That's why the industrial area was put there in the first place. That you can't, my understanding under Florida law is that we can't shut down a business that is already operating. Is that correct?
If they're there as a matter of, they have property interest vested rights in their
Yep.
property, I assume, right,
So-
it'd be a taking, we could.
Yes, yeah, so yeah, I mean, so I feel like we are limited in what we can do, but one thing that I think the only thing that I see as an option that will have something happen in a somewhat maybe not short term, middle term, is for us to upzone and increase the value of those industrial lots, because the only reason they will leave that is if it's worth the money for them. I mean, those are major, I mean, the largest cement plants in the world are there. They don't care about what happens here, but they do if you look at dollar signs and like, oh, the value of this land is worth more, then they will move and sell and go somewhere else that's more industrial. I don't see any, I'm open to it. I don't know of any other paths that we can, that's kind of like pushing them out as we can. Unfortunately, it means they make more money, but that's the only way I can see them moving.
Commissioner?
I agree with that. I don't want to take because those are expensive, one way or the other. And so I do say you can't push them off, but if you upzone it for something more, because it is kind of contiguous to that downtown kind of corridor that we've talked about, that could be the way to do it. But I do have a question. Mr. Persons, sorry. You're going to get your steps in. I know that there's does the city zoning differentiate between heavy industrial and light industrial?
It does.
Well, what falls into light versus heavy?
Generally speaking, like you think about heavy industrial and it's the smokestack style industrial, generally you're going to have a lot more outdoor storage of materials. You may have more intensive processes where there's conversion of like a raw material to a finished one. Light industrial, it's more fabrication of already finished pieces. We actually, like when we updated the code in 2017, we actually included light assembly, fabrication, and processing in most of our mixed-use districts, like to represent the kind of change in technology. But we do still have some areas of heavy industrial in the city. South Main Street happens to be a chunk of it. Also along Southeast 4th. It's a mix of heavy and light, but generally the difference being that heavy industrial are going to have more outdoor, storage of materials and more intensive processes of raw material.
Thank you. And as Mr. Nee might have to weigh in on this, as far as if we upzone something because it hasn't been enhanced or modified just yet, would they be barred from making those enhancements after we upzone?
Changes to the
that zoning.
to the-
So
to the
the owner
uses.
remains the same, but we had the similar conversation the other day. The owner remains the same. They are grandfathered in with their use. However, they want to add or enhance the property further for light manufacturing. Would that be permitted after we upzone, or would it be restricted from the moment going forward?
So generally speaking, like the city has a couple different tiers of nonconformities. Nonconforming uses we tend to be more strict about. Nonconforming lots and structures, there's a lot more flexibility in making improvements. So in that sort of scenario, let's say the city goes in, rezones the property to something like mixed use or residential. Those industrial users could continue under the city's zoning code. They can make sort of minor operational and safety improvements. They couldn't expand the non-conforming uses, but they could make improvements to their buildings, improvements to the site, provided those were, consistent with code. It's not like a straitjacket, I guess, if you will, if we were to rezone those areas. And having been at the city for long enough, I remember back in like the middle 2000s, like 2014, 2015, the city actually had a proposal to rezone most of South Main Street and Southeast 4th at the time to like a high-density mixed-use zoning district, like probably as close to equivalent as maybe like U9 that we have today on the books. So, 6 to 8 stories, about 100 units per acre. We met with several property owners, both large and small, in terms of industrial users. The large industrial users, of which you could probably, count on your fingers, were very interested in what the city was doing, but they had some concerns about, the timing, about sort of how long they could continue their operations, because they weren't, it was on the city's timeline, it wasn't necessarily on their timeline. But they all, at the time, saw the writing on the wall in terms of what the commission's talking about this area transitioning away from a heavy industrial area with a lot of industrial uses into something that's more suited with, and with Depot Park and South Main Street. At the time, none of those projects had broken ground. And so fast forward to today, obviously we have South Main Street, we have Depot Park, there's Southeast 4th that's ongoing. So some of those conversations, I think, have probably matured today. There are a lot of smaller industrial users in that Southeast 4th in particular, and then somewhat Southeast or South Main Street. So anyway, that's all hopefully helpful information.
Thank you, Mr. President, all of it. And I'll explain why I wanted that info. Make Work is trying to build their campus, and I believe they're light industrial in what they do. I don't know how far they are zoned, but they do light industrial work, and they hope their campus will have, housing, but also continue their light industrial use. So that's why I'm asking but they're planning to redevelop the whole property to make that happen, which is my concern, where there is someone who is trying, to do better with the property, improve it in every sense of the word, and bring jobs and training and housing.
Right.
But would they be limited from that project altogether is my concern.
Right, and that's a great point, because that's sort of where we saw, we were back, about 5 or 6 years ago, we were seeing more of that trend of like the fractures, some of the small manufacturing uses that were like in Innovation Square that were doing kind of light assembly. They were putting pieces together, and our zoning code at the time, pre-2017, we would slot those people into like industrial. And so obviously those were not like great industrial uses. They didn't want to be in an industrial area. It was all kind of contained within the building. So we did add light assembly, fabrication, and processing to most of our zoning districts, most of our mixed use and commercial zoning districts, including most of the transect zones. And so something like Make Work, which we're very familiar with, would definitely fall within that. So that would be an allowed use in any sort of probably foreseeable kind of rezoning scenario. So
thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's things like that I want us to be mindful of as we have those conversations. So I'm glad Mr. Persons was here.
Yeah, something like Gray Bar or some of the other, the Vulcan or Florida Rock. Those things wouldn't be considered, those would not be permitted uses in a rezoning scenario, but the light assembly ones would be.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And it sounds like, I can imagine a process, what you were describing. I could imagine that owners would also have to have discussions with tenants and what their timetables would be. I'm okay with going through this process again. If we want to talk about upzoning, I just want to make sure that we're engaging those folks, because this would directly affect them, and it could benefit them. I mean, I remember what was the company many years ago? Double Envelope was looking at leaving the city. So there are other companies that may be considering similar business decisions. So I want them to know that this could be on the table. This could affect their business, depending on what they decide, for better or worse. But ultimately, I want to make sure that we're not getting too far away from specifically right across from Porter's Quarters, which is, you know, ultimately what we would upzone to. You know, that conversation has to happen inside Porter's Quarters as well. When I spoke to Make It Work, you know, I gave them the advice that if you're going to make major changes to this property so close to the neighborhood, have conversations with them as well. You know, because we want to be inclusive in our decisions for zoning and things like that. Good discussion so far. Anything else?
I mean, that issue with the industrial and the dust and stuff going into Porter's Quarters happened for a long time, and I mean, I think we should address it. If there's other ways that can be addressed, I'm fully open, but I think that's the only way that we can. You can have it step down on Depot too, as it comes into or next to the neighborhood. So if we want to start the discussion in this committee and then propose it to the commission and talking about it with the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because I think we'll have to have some explaining of why this is happening. It's happening to stop cement plant from being there.
Yeah, and I can share some of the research, and I know that Andrew Persons helped me ascertain some of those complaints that were filed. Some of them date all the way back to like 2005, so we're talking for a very long period of time. You know, I have been looking for a way to try and address this issue. You know, short of a very expensive legal battle, I would really prefer something that didn't cost the taxpayers. But it has cost the neighborhood so far, and that is also something that we need to look at. Any further discussion?
I guess we want to ask staff to come back with some information on the South Main area, and then also the environmental issues that have come about, and yeah, I guess to that.
And also to...
Do you want to include Porter's and talk about?
Yeah, I think, yeah. Mainly because I think Porter's Quarters is the main one that has been the brunt of the environmental issues. Though there are a lot of other ones, because, I mean, this is I understand it's like 100 years or more of being industrial land, and the stormwater pipes, they don't really go into good places. They just go into creeks, and it's not an environmentally safe area, just in general water quality too.
Yeah.
Downstream.
It sounds like in our request for staff to bring back information on sort of the environmental impacts in that industrial zone, we just want them to consider more than just the Porter's Quarters context area, but really the larger South Main, probably going as far south as Sweetwater.
Yeah, I think that whole,
to the end of it.
That whole industrial area. And then if they have any ideas to, I guess, in essence, reduce the impacts of the industrial areas as well. I don't know if there are any other ones out there, but yeah. Perfect.
Say that again.
Are there other ways to reduce the impacts, like the cement plant? Are there other ways to kind of get them to stop being a cement plant? The only one that I can think of is upsetting it and trying to get them to sell the property and things like that. But I don't know. It's not. It wasn't a question for.
Oh, okay.
It was a question for you all to think about. Coming back in that presentation.
Yeah. Also include in the motion for our neighborhood meetings to include a discussion topic on environmental justice concerns in folks' neighborhood. That can include infrastructure, new development, environmental concerns, air quality, water, things like that. So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Chestnut. Okay, before we take a vote on that, I did want to point out a couple of the articles that I linked to. So the Biden-Harris administration has been really leading a lot in terms of trying to create more monies for minority communities, specifically for climate action. So one of the organizations that I found, the Solutions Project, they are sort of a grant-making organization that I believe actually works with the Biden-Harris administration to try and get these funds. So I would just like our staff to sort of take a look at, over the last couple of years, what federal monies have been made available by the Biden-Harris administration. Because when Alachua County teamed up with the NAACP to go after a Florida Department of Energy grant, I believe it is, or Department of Economic Development. They did receive that. DOE, that was it. They did receive that funding. I don't know how much it is. I haven't gotten all the details yet, but yeah,
I can speak to that.
please.
So, and the GCRA is involved in that too. You do have representatives on that committee, but it is it's not a funding grant. It's a technical assistance grant. And so, but it will put us in a good position once we get through that process. They're going to come down and involve the community in what kind of things that they want to see as far as equity and justice and moving forward with energy burden possibilities and that kind of thing, microgrids, whatever it is that we throw out on the table, they're going to supply the technical expertise to see if we can get there. And so once we complete that, we'll be in a really good position to start asking for money from these federal grants. It's going to be an 18-month process. It's going to start this month.
Fantastic. Definitely keep us updated on that. That's essentially the direction that I want us to go. You know, this administration has just been pumping out incredible legislation. So we're at the forefront of a lot of the work that they're trying to do. So I want to make sure that we're not missing the bread.
Right, but if staff could bring back that information so that we could share it with neighborhoods.
Yep.
With neighborhoods,
Perfect.
with minority groups, that would be very good.
Okay, Phil, please.
Commissioner, I just wanted to go back to what Commissioner A. Santos was talking about in the Southwest, or the South Main Industrial Park. Two of the materials manufacturers have already moved out of there. Yelvington moved up on US 441, and I can't think of the name, I think it's Argos, but I'm not sure, moved their cement plant to Northeast 53rd Avenue. And those companies moving is what's actually helped CSX be able to terminate the rail yard in the North Main Industrial Park instead of it when it used to come all the way down and across Depot along 6th. So we have seen some movement.
Yeah.
The Elvington yard needs to be next to rail, so they've moved, they're just immediately south of GRU.
Okay. Well, it sounds like this is a timely conversation then, and I think a lot of those property owners will probably want to take part in it. Okay. Well, we have a motion for information to come back. Some light direction, I would say. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Seeing none, motion passes. Okay, that brings us to the end of a sprightly agenda. Any public comment on just any issue that could possibly be thought of?
Well, and Jeff Shapiro, excuse me. Yes, in the league, we've talked a lot about GRU, of course, and we're looking forward to seeing some sort of a position in the administration of the city under the manager, I suppose, in order to keep a good eye on climate issues. So we're hoping to see some movement on that real soon. We understand that that's in process. Also, though, we'd like to see some longer-range plans for the replacement, especially the coal plant, and also eventual decommissioning of the gas plant instead of adding another gas plant.
Yeah. My understanding is that, and I would definitely defer to GRU on some of these dates, but the gas fire plants, they're not near aged period, but my understanding is that they will go at least until 2040, which is 5 years before we've set our goal. The coal plants, I believe, all have decommission dates in this decade. But that's my general understanding of the Deer Haven facilities. And John Kelly. Yeah.
And so, the general manager is working on a new IRP that I think is starting on it now, or very, very shortly as well. And I think it's going to be much more focused on getting feedback from the commission and the public and things like that. Before it was very, very kind of
Right.
internal.
Yeah.
So I think with that document coming out, that will give us the plan moving into the future. And it won't just be something that was created kind of internally.
Good, so that should be coming this year, maybe?
I don't want to give an exact, I know it's something that the manager said that he was starting to work on, starting, so I don't know if it'll be this year or next year.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Terrific. Thank you for being here, by the way. Okay, so really quickly for member comment, I want to apologize again for the late timing of the backup. We went pretty quickly this time around. I don't imagine that once we get into the details of policy that meetings will go by so quickly. So how about we just, for the next meeting in a month, we'll revisit these 3 items because we've asked for staff to come back, and we just add the item for pedestrian and bicycle issues.
Roberta, excuse me.
Yeah.
But she might want to address the situation with regard to gas, fossil gas distribution.
Well, I think everybody here knows my position on GRU, providing rebates for gas appliances in homes, 88% of which go to expensive houses out in the western part of the county. And I think we need to stop the rebates immediately, and I hope that we stop providing money to build infrastructure, gas infrastructure. We shouldn't be doing that. If we're trying to move away from fossil fuels, we should be stopping any kind of new capital investment in infrastructure. I hope the commission will take that up under consideration here real soon.
Thank you. I agree. I would ask the committee, obviously, we've had a discussion at the commission level, and I think the UAB has even been there for some of our discussions about those rebates. We could have a discussion at the subcommittee level. We could make a recommendation to the city commission. Would it be perhaps more efficient to just, from our subcommittee, ask the city commission to take this up on an agenda so that we can have a full vote from the whole commission? Because it could sit in subcommittee for a month or 2 before it even gets to the city commission, is my thinking.
I mean, I think it's better to hash things out in a subcommittee. You can have all the questions. There are questions that I have and information that I need before kind of moving forward on things. And I think it's better if we get all those questions, we get input from the public, and then there's very clear kind of ask to the commission. But I don't know if we can do all 5 on the next meeting.
Yeah, no,
I guess I would just say leave it up to you to work with staff. If staff has stuff that's ready, they may not be ready on some of the issues and presentations, and kind of put on things that are ready on that list as you kind of go through.
Now, and I'd like to hear from GRU
Yeah, okay.
specifically on it.
Okay, so then how about we keep these 3 items? We can ask GRU to come back with information on the gas rebates. We can have that discussion at our next meeting. Ask the questions that you feel would be, wherever you want to lay on that. And we can, if we can't get to the other issue, we can just get it on the next meeting. And that's generally what we do in subcommittees. If we can't get to it, we just push it to the next meeting.
And hopefully you all will join us again.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we're going to aim to have same time, same day. So far, we haven't run into any significant scheduling issues, so yeah,
Excellent.
probably every first Tuesday.
Well, if I might say so, thank you very much for having us. And we're very, especially thankful for the focus on equity. And we're very concerned about the potential havoc that might occur in the future with regard to all the various problems that increasing temperatures and other events, weather events and flooding
Yeah.
might produce. So we're very aware of that and very interested in helping protect the people who can least afford to to do it themselves.
Here, here. Okay, well, I will strive to do better with the agenda for the next meeting. Our next meeting date, any other comments? Our next meeting date is June 7th, 22. Okay, seeing none, we're adjourned.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you.